at the first week of December, all of my clients get an email blast so that they know what to expect. And that helps so much. So we are having this conversation now in the third week of January. All of my clients that gave me their information are tax ready. And I could not have said that 5 years ago.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Our returning guest is a great friend of the show. She is the founder of Florida Virtual Bookkeeper, Jessica Fox. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Michael. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you. And you have been on the podcast several times. It's always wonderful having you back. And I know our listeners absolutely love hearing from you. And so thank you for coming back. And I'd love to hear, before we get into, because before the show we were talking about the theme of the show, which is preparing for tax season, how you do it and what you think about. And this is one of your faves, and you can share that with us. But maybe talk a little bit about what's changed in your life since being on the podcast. I mean, we did have you on the year-end review podcast, but that was with a big panel. So it wasn't really an opportunity to talk about some of the things deeper into what you've been doing. But lots has changed in your life.
Yes, it's onwards and upwards. I have been very blessed to have been very focused on the last couple of years, where I come up with a goal and I actually see it to its execution, which is easier said than done. I know a lot of listeners probably think, oh, I wish I could do this, and life gets in the way. So I have done a lot of hardcore systematizing. I already had systems, but I took them to the next level. And it's an ever-evolving process. It's like software. You always have new versions, new iterations, ways to identify how to improve. And I've also been able to dedicate, as a result of the time that these systems have freed me, I have been able to nurture a passion project, which is a community where I pay it forward to other bookkeepers that are starting out. The ones that were like me when I started and I was lost and lonely and clueless, to help them have that guidance I wish I had when I started.
Wow. Beautiful. It sounds like you're into it, and I do appreciate it too, because it's everything, all the systems you build, all the ecosystem of the software tools and everything else is always changing as well. So it's one of the big pieces of business today that may not have been there, say 20 years ago. That was not something people did. It was almost static. This is how we do it. It goes like this. And it was static for like 50 years or 100 years or 200 years. And now it literally changes month to month, week to week, day to day, how things work, how we do our work. Those systems can break, all of that good stuff. So it's a big piece of the job.
Yes, and it's funny you mentioned 20 years ago. I was doing this 20 years ago, and back then I had paper notes. They were barely checklists, nothing like what I have today. And if I was still using the same processes that I was using 20 years ago, my business would be a third of the size that it is, because I would just not have enough hours in the day to be able to do as much as I get done now.
Nice. That's great. That's the benefit. That's the payoff. Well, let's talk about getting ready for tax season. What's your take on it? What do you do? What do you recommend? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, so I believe that tax season is year-round, and this is different from the way a lot of bookkeepers treat it. Many years ago, for me, tax season was January through April. That's the normal tax season in the United States. Then there will be a second mini tax season during extension season, where those people that go on extension and then they become due in either September or October. But it led to these seasonal ebbs and flows that were difficult to manage. And I did not like the impact in my quality of life of not having the work-life balance that I wanted from January to April. So the first thing that I did is I did some analysis of what could be better, what are the bottlenecks, and what can I do to prevent this from happening again? And the answer is a lot of the stuff that was taking me extra time could be done in smaller, bite-sized increments throughout the year. So as I do the monthly recurring work for my clients, I am always thinking ahead to tax season so that I do not have to go back to it unless I absolutely have to. So by the time that December wraps up and I am in January getting the books tax ready, I am just making sure nothing's changed, making sure our I's are dotted and all T's are crossed.
Interesting. And so have you been doing that for a while? How did that process come to be?
So this process came to be about 4 years ago when that tax season was so stressful. And it's also the time where I am the most popular for new prospects, because that's when all of the business owners that completely ignore their books for the entire year suddenly need you when they want to file their taxes right away, because maybe they want to apply for a loan or buy a house or whatever the case may be. And I just could not juggle it all. So I looked into, by then I had just recently implemented the Pure Bookkeeping System, which was a really good first foundation to help me realize, hey, there's some reviews that I could be doing during a year that I had been waiting until the fiscal year ended to do. If I were to do these things quarterly or monthly, it reduces the workload. I also realized that my biggest bottleneck were my clients, because they are still in holiday fog mode. They're still recovering from being away from the business, dealing with family, Christmas, or whatever they celebrate, and they are not as responsive. So I started to request information earlier. In the United States, one of the big tax requirements for bookkeepers in January is 1099 forms. And there is this information that I could have been asking for all year long, but I had been waiting until January. Now I ask for that information on a monthly basis, and I put my clients on notice at the first week of December. All of my clients get an email blast so that they know what to expect, what's to come, and what important dates they need to plan for. So if they're planning on going on vacation or they know that they're about to get very busy, I secure my needs before they are away from their business. And that helps so much. So we are having this conversation now in the third week of January. All of my clients that gave me their information are tax ready. And I could not have said that 5 years ago.
That's amazing. So what would you say to someone who would like to have this situation? What are some steps that they could take to start to do this in their business?
First, get your quality control systems in place and make them part of your monthly workflow. I see a lot of bookkeepers that they just focus on banks and credit card accounts every month, and they leave the rest of the balance sheet to year end. And then in January, they're trying to make sense of, did the business get a loan? Did they invest in cryptocurrency? All of these other things that could have been caught and handled when they happened. And same if there is additional information that needs to be requested, to systematize requesting it periodically. So for example, in the United States, this 1099 requirement, which is an informational return for independent contractors and vendors that needs to be reported to the taxing authority, there is a form that we need to request from the vendor. And a lot of business owners either don't know or forget, or they have this I'll get it later mentality. I ask that anytime I see a vendor getting paid for the first time, it saves the hassle and the stress of trying to chase down that vendor in January, because let's face it, not all of them are going to be responsive. Some may have moved on, or some may not really want to give you that information because, let's face it, there's some tax evasion and they don't want to have to report the income if they can help it.
Right.
So
they don't look forward to those requests.
They sure don't. So now my clients are very well trained that W-9 form collected before you issue the first payment, and they try to be sneaky and pay them without me knowing. So they don't send me the bill until after it's paid, and then I immediately turn around, I catch it that same month. I said, I need that W-9. And my system is via a portal, so all requests are visible when they log on, and it automatically nags them until they get it done. So it's not like, oh, I forgot, I lost that email. Anytime that they go to look at their financials or they go to provide information, they can see, oh, I still owe Jessica that form.
That's nice. That's nice. What happens when you don't get that information? How do you deal with that as a business?
So I have to set up boundaries with my clients, because many years ago, I felt like their mother. I had to constantly be holding their hand and stay on top of them. And then I realized they're adults. They have their own mothers. So now I set up clear boundaries.
Legally adults, maybe not.
Right. Maybe not mentally, but on paper.
Yes.
But now I set up clear boundaries and timelines. And I have a document called Healthy Working Relationship that all clients sign when they onboard, which spells out what they should expect from me and what I expect from them. And then if they don't do their end of the bargain, what happens? So my clients understand that if they do not provide information in a timely manner, then the timeline for their books is no longer guaranteed. If I say I'm going to have your reports by the 15th, but you wait until the 13th to provide the information, guess what? That timeline is null and void because you were supposed to provide it at least 5 business days in advance. I also understand that life happens. So I encourage my clients to have very open communication. If they get sick or they want to go on vacation and not bring their laptop, I get it. Just tell me, and together we can adapt. But if a client decides to just ignore me, my agreement states that if I don't hear from them for over 30 days and they have not even acknowledged any of my requests or made arrangements to postpone or reschedule the project, I'll assume they're not interested in my business and rehome them. I have a waiting list, so I can afford to do that. There's plenty of other people that are eager for my time and that they are willing to respect it. So ever since I set up those boundaries, it works so well. I do occasionally still have to wait information from clients, but they let me know. I am sorry. I know I have to provide this information. I will get it to you as soon as I can. And then they know then that their timeline for their bookkeeping will be adjusted accordingly. I have a client right now that they were really sorry they owed me something. I said, that's fine. Just know that you're probably going to need an extension on your taxes. And they understood and they agreed, and we're all happy. It prevents any tension or miscommunications, or what used to happen years ago, where I would stay up late at night trying to process the information that they submitted that day because the taxpayer wants it tomorrow. Not anymore. I don't do that.
That's nice. That's nice. That creates a lot of freedom for you and takes away from a ton of thinking and basically you're closing loops, letting them handle it, and you've handled it because you've communicated it, and now it's off your plate.
Yes. And I can't care more than they do. I used to stay up late at night, having trouble sleeping, worrying about this client that was about to miss the tax deadline. And then I realized it's not my problem. It's not my business. I am not the one that gets in trouble. So I also, I have this printed as a sign because I have to remind myself often that just because they procrastinated, it doesn't mean it suddenly becomes my emergency.
Let's read that out so the sign says, their lack of planning is not my emergency. So this is a nice painted plaque in your office, and that reminds you, yes, their lack of planning is not your emergency. That could be for everyone to remind themselves with. And you've said a few times, you haven't been this way always. There's going to be a range of people on the podcast right now listening that, hey, they're still in that I care a lot mode. And it's not that you stopped caring, it's that you're not putting it on yourself. What were some of the things that helped you? Because in terms of planning with tax, it's a very stressful time of year for many people. The work to be done, the deadlines, the consequences, the work that people as your clients might have to go through to go and get things done. News might not always be good in terms of what it all looks like. So there's a lot to care about. How did you get to where you get these boundaries up? What were some of the things that helped you get there?
What really helped me was having community that told me there was a better way. Because when I first started, I thought this is just how it is. My mentor was a tax accountant that worked 100-hour weeks during tax season. So I thought that by going into this industry, I was going to have to work something along those lines just to be able to meet the demand. And then I realized it doesn't have to be that way. I saw bookkeepers that were working no more than 40 hours per week and spending time with their children. And I said, that's what I want. This is why I started my business, to have work-life balance and be present for my children and not have to work into the wee hours of the morning. So then I saw that it was possible. And that then inspired me to figure out what I needed to change in my business to make it happen. And the first thing that I needed to do is to realize that no is a complete sentence and stop being the yes lady for everything. Oh, any question that a client asks, yes. No questions asked, no negotiation, no back and forth. And I learned that clients, unfortunately, many of them, not all, are like toddlers. Toddlers like to test boundaries. You know, you give a hand, they expect to take the arm. And right. I thought that that's how it had to be. And it led to some very unhealthy and unbalanced relationship with clients that expected me to pick up the phone on a Saturday night and to have everything ready for the tax preparer by open of business Monday morning. And once I realized it does not have to be that way, it was hard at first because I am conflict averse, and those are uncomfortable conversations to have. But it essentially boiled down to, this is how I work now. And then I gave the choice to the client, because there are really no emergencies in accounting. If you miss the tax deadline, that could have been prevented, and you will pay a penalty, but nobody's gonna die from it. But now, if the client really wants it done, I give them the choice. Well, there is a rush fee. And I make that rush fee high enough to make it worth the inconvenience for me, and high enough that makes the client think twice. Is this truly urgent? And 99% realize it's not urgent, and they're fine with waiting. In the 5 years since I've had that rush fee, only one person paid it.
It's a great way. I love the way you've called it. It's a rush fee, and it's almost a pattern interrupt for people. Like, people are running patterns, right? It's like, oh, I got to get this done, and you need to fix it, and yes, I can fix it, and you have a fee for that. And it's like, what? And it's very interesting way to handle it, because then you really know is this valuable for you as the person doing it to rush? And it puts a value on it, right? It's like, how valuable is this getting done by tomorrow or next week or whatever? If you're taking me off of someone else, there's got to be a consequence to that, and probably changes the conversation very quickly.
It sure does. And my clients very quickly learned that if they want to save money, they just need to respond to information timely, because nothing that I request comes in a surprise and nothing gets requested at the last minute. So I am very proud this year that all of my clients gave me everything that I needed by December 27th.
Nice.
And I was on vacation that week. So I came to my desk January 2nd. I had everything that I needed to work on, except for this one client. He's still in the onboarding stages, so he's learning how things work.
Right.
But he understands that he's going to go on an extension on his tax return, and he's okay with that. And this is going to be the third year where I am spending the 1099 filing deadline in the middle of an ocean, sipping umbrella drinks, those fruity cocktails, without my laptop. My laptop is going to be over 1,000 miles away, and that's my new tradition. So
Nice.
after you and I have this conversation, I am leaving to go on that cruise, and all of my
Beautiful.
clients are taken care of. All of their forms are filed, and I already have next year's cruise also booked.
Love it. That's great. It's really such a fabulous goal to set, and I'm sure at some point is to say, this is the way I want my life to look, and then you work it backwards. What do I need? How does this need to look? How does this need to work? And over time, you've built this so the system works for you, and you're there, which is fantastic. I think the just to jump back to the behaviors, and people may be thinking, oh, I can't do this, or what would my clients think? It's becoming very prevalent in the world. Like if you think of like a theme parks have all sorts of different, there's lots you could complain about in a theme park like Disneyland, but I don't want to stand in this long line. Well, buy a fast pass. Like you had a choice. And it also, once people know the choices exist, then everybody has to just make the choice and live with the choice that they've made, and the conversation kind of ends there. It's like, if you want something done fast, if you were behind. So a big piece of that is in communication. As you've changed your processes and you come up with new ideas, or you do things differently, how do you communicate back to your clients that these changes happen? Like, is that done often? And do you have pushback? What does that look like?
So thankfully, I haven't had to implement any policy changes for several years. But when I first did, I just made a blanket announcement, an email blast, and I tried to anticipate questions and I anticipate friction points and have ready answers for that. I also make sure that I was very intentional about my wording and frame it answering the question, what's in it for me? Because that's what clients care about. It's not me issuing a new policy saying this is how it is from now on, take it or leave it. It's this is how this benefits you. And I framed it from this is how it allows me to serve you better and make sure that we have a win-win relationship. So I really did not have pushback from most of my clients. I had a little bit of just, like I said earlier, a toddler trying to test the boundaries of one client that said, oh, it's okay. And they tried to revert to their old bad habits just to see if they could get away with it. And when I gently reminded them of this is how it is now, they said, okay, sounds good. And they're still my client 5 years later.
Wow. I guess that's part of the piece, is to hold the line on it, and you come up with it, hold the line, don't let the slippery slope slide, and then eventually you bring everybody on board. And of course, there's always going to be new toddlers testing the slope, but that's a key piece. That's valuable. One of the other things is, if you have to get rid of a client, how does that look? It sounds like you do a lot of vetting in the beginning. And I know in past conversations we've talked about that. It's like ideal client, this is the way it works. If you don't like it, there's lots of other people. I have a long list. But if you had to get rid of one of the toddlers, what does that look like for you?
Yes, I have a system for that. It makes it, I templated emails. I essentially just click and it starts a workflow. I very rarely have to rehome clients. That's the term that I use.
Rehome,
It's
I
like
like it.
I am rehoming them. They're going to somebody else. And usually it would be for one of two reasons. Either they stop responding and they ignore me for too long without letting me know that, hey, there's extenuating circumstances why they are not going to be responsive, or they outgrew me, and which is really like my goal. That's like a sense of pride when I help them grow so much that they now need to bring accounting in-house. So I have a template for both scenarios, and I send an email. They get the notification that this is official termination of professional services. So that way they have it in writing. It gives an effective date. It gives the next steps of what to expect. So if they are outgrowing me, I give a transition period. I am not just dumping them out into the curb. I help them with making sure that they feel nurtured and know what the next steps are and to make sure that the transition goes smoothly. But if they were just ghosting me, that termination is effective immediately. And then I let them know, your books are up to date through this date. This is the information that was not processed. It is not your responsibility. Please remove my access from all of your financial institutions, apps, anything else that you may have given me access to, because I cannot delete that myself for security reasons. All of those little technical admin things that we need to do.
That's another great system that you have. So you're prepared. You're going away on vacation. This is a big celebration episode then around systems and process, and congratulations on building a business that's serving you, serving your clients, and really a business you love.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. What's next for you? When you come back from vacation, there's the business things, but what are some other things that you're going to focus on for you and your business?
So when I get back, I will actually take on a couple of rescue projects. So these are some very lucky people because I tend to be very, very full in capacity. I manage my capacity so I work no more than 20 to 30 hours per week. I
Okay.
usually work 30 hours per week in January, 20 hours the rest of the year. So I love cleanups. I love rescues. And it's been a few months since I've taken some. So I look forward to that. Let's see who in my waiting list gets lucky. It's first come, first served. And
Nice.
because I do some vetting at Diagnostic, just because they are next in line doesn't necessarily mean that I'll take their project. I am also working on nurturing the community that I started 2 years ago, really as an experiment. It started as the place where it became the repository of all of the content that I created that I spread all throughout the internet so that people can find it in one place. And I have lots of fun answering questions, hosting live sessions, working Zooms where we actually get things done together. So I look forward to this year being able to be more intentional about what I do with that community. I haven't finalized the vision of what it's going to look like in 5 years, but it's no longer just a little side thing.
Got it. Very, very good. And for people that want to get in there and participate and belong and work there with you, how can they find out about it? How can they get there?
Sure. It's the Bookkeeping Systems Lounge, and the website is bksystemslounge.club.
Okay, got it. We can have the link in there as well. And that's a great place probably for them to learn more about you and to just get in there and come meet you.
Yes. It's a full-fledged community. It's outside of the social media. So people that don't like Facebook don't need Facebook. It's its own standalone website. There's discussion boards. There's some free mini courses. We have monthly sessions. Some sessions I have guests, other sessions I teach content, other sessions is pick Jessica's brain, bring your questions. So we mix it up and make it very supportive.
Lovely. Lovely. That's fantastic. Jessica, you're a fantastic member of our community. We appreciate you and, being on the podcast, attending our Successful Bookkeeper Summits, teaching and mentoring members throughout, all sorts of great things that you've done over the years. And so thank you. And it's always just a pleasure to speak with you and to see you doing great things in your business and in the community.
Thank you for having me. This was fun, and I hope that some of my learnings are helpful for the listeners.
I'm sure they are. I know they have been for me, and, the pleasure is all ours. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.